Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 164. Let's talk about snacking. I have just had a lovely chat with someone about snacks because they're feeling very frustrated that they are trying to lose weight and they're working to 14 to 1600 calories, and once they've had their main meals, their frustration is that they don't have many calories left over for snacks. So I asked the question, because their hunger levels were good, I asked the question, but are you hungry? Well, no. So this is something that I have to work on a lot with clients. So first of all, I want to start by saying this, right? Please remember that it doesn't matter if you're losing weight right now, if you're thinking about losing weight, or whatever position that you're in. The weight that you are right now is a result of the way that you think, the way that you act, the way that you behave, everything that you are doing right now that relates to food and drink. All of it is the reason that you are the weight that you are. Okay, your weight it's not doing anything by itself. It's not bad luck. It's not where it is because that's just the luck of the draw and everybody ends up at the weight that they're supposed to be. It's not predetermined. Okay, this is the way that you are living. This is the weight that is attached to that way of living. I wrote something on Instagram last week. What was it again? I'm going to find it actually because it'll be in my place where I design all my graphics. Something about the old life. There we go. It was just a little one-line quote. Your new life is going to cost you your old one. Which basically means, let's bring it back to familiar numbers, right? If you are 12 stone, or 14, or 15, or 18, or 20, or 22, it does not matter. But 12 stone's the one that I used in an old podcast episode. If you want to listen to it, look for 12 stone lifestyle, 9 stone body. I would encourage anyone to listen to that. I get every new member in the Monroe Method to go listen to that one. Whatever weight you are right now, whatever the stones attached to it is, it's not by accident, it's not bad luck. It's there because that is the weight reflective of the way that you live, the way that you think, the way that you behave, the way that you take care of yourself. The yo-yo diet industry doesn't talk about things like this because it doesn't want to make weight loss sound overwhelming, right? There is a demographic of people who are happy to stay focused on the weight, right? I don't work with those people. I work with the people who are fed up of focusing on that and actually want to lose weight for life. But the weight loss, the yo-yo diet industry likes to keep people focused on their weight, and here's a bunch of things you can do to make it go down, and then when you get fed up of that, you can go back to normal and watch it go back up, and then you can come back again. The people I work with are the ones who realise that it's their life that needs to change. So think about this, right? Let's say you are 12 stone right now, or whatever your weight is right now. It is there because of everything that you do, right? Not just the good things, not just the bad things, if that's the easiest way for you to split them up. It's everything. It's not just how you live Monday to Thursday, it's also how you live Friday to Sunday. It's not just how you live during term times or during routine times, it's also during out of routine times and holidays and things. If that's the reason your weight is where it is, then logically it makes sense that, well, if I want to change my weight and I want it to stay changed, then I need to change and I also need to stay changed. Make sense? So the way that from the moment you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do in the morning, whether you eat breakfast or not, what you have for breakfast, whether you clear every plate or not, whether you pack a lunch for work or not, or you just wing it. If you drink, 2 or 3 milky lattes in the morning at 200 or 300 calories each. if you sit and scroll your phone for hours, if you order takeaways, if you don't plan your dinners and just eat whatever when you come home, like every single thing that you do related to food and drink accumulates to your current weight. So, and this is where the weight loss industry doesn't want your attention focused, right? It doesn't care about that. All it cares about is, okay, let's give these people an instruction manual to help their weight come down. Because people like that. Somebody came to work with me recently and said, oh, this has been very challenging not having a plan to follow or a book to follow. And it's like, yeah, well, you're 45 years old. You've been dieting since you were 16. Having a plan to follow and a book to follow and being told what to do, it's not helped you this far, so it's not going to help you. That's why we work through the initial 30-day course. That's why I get you to focus on the things that matter for long-term weight loss. That's why that's why this feels so different and challenging, because you're actually now doing the work that's important. You're doing the work that matters. So bringing this back to snacking. Snacking is a huge driver behind people's weight because it's typically unnecessary eating. So now, I don't want you to think that you can never have unnecessary eating, right? I eat something. I have always eaten something at night with a cup of tea, watching the TV, whether that's like at the moment, it's these dime bars. You get them in farm foods. It's like 2 dime bars in one. One of them's about 140 calories or something. I can't remember. I don't really pay attention to calories anymore, which isn't helpful for the people that I'm working with. But it's something like 140 calories. It's completely unnecessary eating. I don't need it. I'm not hungry because chocolate's not a hunger food. I have it because I want to have it because it tastes great. And I don't really do that throughout the rest of the day. I wouldn't go and get crisps. I don't eat biscuits. Like I don't really snack during the day. That's probably the only thing I have at night, right? And that isn't to say it's the right way to do it or the only way to do it. That's just the pattern of eating that I've landed on. It's a pattern of eating that I developed, and it's the one that allows me to live at a weight that I want to be and be as healthy as I want to be and all those things. Now, when people get a bit annoyed about not being able to snack much, it's because they want to do too much unnecessary eating. How do we know it's too much? Well, we know it's too much because it's leading you to a weight that you don't want to be, right? If you are a weight that you don't want to be right now, it's because you are doing too much of something. So that could be you're clearing every plate of food. So you're eating too much at meal times. You're snacking between every meal when you're not hungry, so you're doing too much snacking. Maybe you're someone who turns every meal into 2 courses. You've always got to have something sweet after every meal, or you've always got to have dessert after a meal. You're having that too much. So your weight is the outcome of you doing too much of multiple things. You're having too many takeaways. You're drinking too much alcohol. You're eating out too much. You're snacking too much, right? Remember that the solution to too much is not to not do something ever again, right? If somebody's drinking too much, the solution is not, well, I'm not going to drink again for the rest of my life. If somebody's snacking too much, it's not, well, I'm not going to snack again for the rest of my life. It's having that basic understanding that this is something that I am doing too much of. This is something that I'm leaning too heavily on. And it's also something that's leading my weight to be my current weight. Therefore, if I want to be a different weight, then I should want everything attached to that. So I'll come back to that example, right? Somebody's 12 stone and they want to be 9 stone. In that podcast episode I mentioned, it's called 12 stone lifestyle, 9 stone body. So your weight is where it is because that is the lifestyle that you have. So if your weight is 12 stone, it's because you have a 12 stone lifestyle. In my 20s, I was 14.5 stone because I had a 14.5 stone lifestyle. I didn't want to be 14.5 stone anymore. I wanted to be lighter. So it wasn't just about what foods do I need to eat or how many calories do I need to eat to get to that weight. That's the wrong question. The right question is, how do I need to live if I want to be 11.5 stone or 12 stone? What is that version of me doing and not doing? Well, that version of me is not going to be snacking. I'm not going to be snacking the same way at 12 stone as I am at 14 and a half stone. I'm not going to be drinking the same way. I'm not going to be eating as many takeaways. I'm not going to be, what else? Non-food related things. I'm not going to be staying up as late. I'm not going to have as much screen time. I'm not going to be sat on my bum as much. So, yeah, people often get annoyed about how the way that they want to snack now doesn't fit in with their calories. And this is when you have to have that very honest and upfront conversation and say, well, that should be an indicator that you're snacking too much. You're doing too much unnecessary eating. Snacking is not an entitlement, right? It's not a default. It's not something that everybody has to do. I think that's the important thing to get to grips with. The way that I view snacking, right? Snacks should be a strategic thing, especially when you're in a calorie deficit. When I do people's check-ins, there's a question about hunger. On average, what's your hunger been like over the last fortnight? And then they kind of rate it from 0 to 10. Now, I used to have a follow-up question in there that said, are there any particular times of the day where you feel most hungry? And I took it out because 99% of people would say yes. After lunch on the run up to dinner time. The overwhelming majority of people get hungry about 3 or 4 p.m., right? If you think about it, like most people are having breakfast. Well, most people have a shorter gap between breakfast and lunch than they do the gap between lunch and dinner. That's one part of it. The other part of it is you're clock watching. You're counting down the time until work finishes. You might be tired. You might be bored. You might be distracted. Your mind's wandering to food. So some of it's real hunger, and then some of it could be the fact that you've not had a great lunch. You've had a pot noodle and toast for lunch, or super noodles, or something that's not particularly filling. And of course you're hungry because there's no protein involved. There's no vegetables involved. There's no fruits involved. There's no fibre. Some of it's that. So if I was in a calorie deficit and I've had my breakfast, I've had my balanced lunch, but I'm getting to 4 p.m. and I'm starting to feel hungry, and dinner's at 6, say. Although Louise always tells me that I eat very early, like she eats dinner at like 8 p.m. There's no right or wrong time to eat dinner. I'm just used to eating like 5 or 6 p.m. with the kids. Then, think of hunger as being on a sliding scale. So when we're eating, we're not always eating to fill ourselves up. I think that's an important point to start to get to grips with, right? Every time you eat, it should not be about making hunger completely go away. Let's say that you have your breakfast in the morning and you're going to have your lunch at 12 and it gets to 11 and your hunger's about a 5 or a 6, right? A 10 being extreme. Your hunger's about a 5 or a 6. You're ready for your lunch. That's pretty good. Now, let's say you get to 11 a.m. and your hunger's about a 7 or an 8. That's too much hunger. That's when you might eat unnecessarily, or you may white knuckle it to lunchtime, but by that point your hunger's a 9 or a 10 and you then overeat because your hunger was so strong. So you can strategically at 10 a.m. say, well, I am going to have an apple. Now you might think, well, an apple's not going to do very much, but that's the point. It's not meant to do very much. Your hunger's at a 7 or an 8. You're going to eat an apple and you're going to bring it down to a 5 or a 6. Like, you're still supposed to feel hungry. You're just not supposed to feel as hungry. That's the point of a snack. We're not trying to make hunger go away. We're not trying to solve hunger. We're trying to bridge a gap between a mealtime in a strategic way that doesn't lead us to overeat, that doesn't lead us to go grab a packet of biscuits and end up eating 6 biscuits and then go and have our lunch. It's a strategic thing to help us manage our hunger levels throughout the day, not to make them completely go away, but to stop them from being so intense, right? And then when we're at maintenance calories and we're having bigger breakfasts and bigger lunches and we are making it between meals, then we don't need to eat. If you've ever heard me talk about hunger, if you've ever heard about me talking about eating and splitting it up into 2 parts, right? There is eating food and there is using food. Eating food is what we do when we are hungry. Using food is what we do when we are not hungry. So if you're not hungry and you eat, you're not eating, you're using. Eating is what we do to satisfy a physical need. I am hungry. I am eating breakfast. I'm no longer hungry. I have just eaten something. Versus, I am not hungry. I just want to eat something. I'm going to eat it. You have just used food. So eating is what we do in response to hunger, in response to our body's needs. Using is what we do when we are using food to accomplish something else, whether that's boredom or distraction. We're using it to cope. We're using it for pleasure. We're using it for fun. We're using it for distraction. We're using it to amplify an experience. So like snacking in front of the TV or eating in the cinema, you're already doing something that you're enjoying, but you want to maximize it. And most of I'm going to say this, I don't usually say talking absolutes, but I feel like most of a person's additional weight is from their overuse of food. And the other thing as well there is, so imagine you're eating a meal, and so you're hungry and you sit down to your dinner and you get 2/3 of the way through your dinner and you're no longer hungry. Your body is telling you, I've had enough, it's time to stop. And you decide, no, well, I want to keep going. That's you switching from eating. Your body's told you you've had enough, you've satisfied your body, it's letting you know that you're starting to feel full. At that point, you should stop eating. If you choose to continue because you're enjoying it, because it tastes nice or whatever, you're now switching over to using food. Most of a person's additional weight comes from the overuse of food, from using food too much. So you're eating, but then you're also using. So snacking falls into most snacking. When people tell me they don't have enough calories left over for snacks, it's like, well, are you hungry? You said your hunger levels are fine. Yeah, but I fancy this or I fancy that. And it's like, okay, well, what you need to understand is you came to me and you were 15 stone. You have been doing too much of what you fancy. This is among changing the balance of your diet, working on your portion sizes through being able to stop when you start to feel full, all this stuff. You have to understand that your desire to eat is a part of the reason why your weight is where it is. You're not going to get from 15 stone to 10 stone by continuing to just eat when you fancy eating. And then it's not about stopping yourself from fancying eating. It's from me explaining it back to the person in that way and saying, because Slimming World especially plays into this, right? This is what the sins are for. Sins are meant to be for what you fancy. They're not something that you're supposed to use every day, yet most people take it as permission to eat, maximize their eating every day. But it's meant to be for that stuff that you fancy. It's meant to help put limits and restrictions on it. But it facilitates it. It doesn't help you solve it. It doesn't help you improve it. It just gives you a number to stick to. And that's not changing that's not changing the problem. It's just it doesn't change the problem. It just puts a numerical restriction on it. I need to write that down. That's good. It doesn't change. In fact, I'll voice note it into my phone because it will save me writing it. I'll put it in my little notepad. Microphone. It doesn't change the problem. It just puts a numerical restriction on it. No, that went as new medical. Never mind. Yeah, I can't even remember what the topic of this was or how I started it. Snacking? Did I just talk about snacking? So yeah, the conversation I had to have with this person was, if you don't have calories left over for a snack, your diet looks great. You've told me you're not hungry. You're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And she's still managing to have, I don't know, a bit of chocolate at night. The problem then isn't that you don't have enough calories left for snacks. It's that you want to snack too much. That's the problem. So you want to do more eating than your body needs. Yes, we're in a calorie deficit, and that's going to be more challenging in a deficit because we're eating less calories than we're burning. You will have more freedom to do this at maintenance, but this is a great lesson for you to learn that, you have a goal. You want to lose weight. You want to do the things to make sure it stays lost. You want to understand why your weight was where it was. This is one of those moments. You want to eat for pleasure too much. And then it's not just about having the realization, because most of us know we're eating too much. It's never as simple as, well, I'll just need to eat less. It's about, okay, well, Yes, I want to do something that I enjoy. I need to find something else. This is where, a lot of a weight loss journey is about finding more things to do that don't involve eating and drinking. About trying to find pleasure in different places, about trying to find fun and joy and excitement in places that don't involve consuming calories. If food is where you get your comfort, your joy, your happiness, your excitement, your fun from, then your weight is always going to be in a place that you don't want it to be. You can't eat to your body's needs, but then also eat as a hobby, eat for fun, eat for pleasure, eat for enjoyment, eat for socializing. You can't eat to cope, eat to celebrate, eat to commiserate. The more of that stuff that you do, the higher your weight will always be. And this is why people get very stuck with their weight, because they follow diets, which is fine because it temporarily helps your weight come down, but they're not teaching you how to celebrate differently. They're not teaching you how to commiserate differently. They're not helping you manage your emotions and cope with those better. They're not explaining to you that you're going to have to find new places to get your fun and your joy and your excitement from. I think if we're going to take something from this episode, it's that snacking is not an entitlement. Yes, you can absolutely eat whatever you want, whenever you want, but you also have to understand that the scale at which you want to do that is going to play a role in where your weight is. So it's not just about eating less. It's not just about finding, a lower number of calories or the right number of calories to stick to. Like, you can do that stuff and lose weight. The difference between staying at that weight or not is how much of this do I resolve along the way? Where else can I get fun from? What else can I do in the evening instead of going to the kitchen and getting crisps and sweets and chocolate? Because that's an old behaviour. That's associated with the 15 stone version of me. You cannot take insert whatever number. In that episode I used 12 stone and I explained that you cannot take your 12 stone lifestyle and compress it to fit into a 9 stone body. The example I always use is, right, I was 14 and a half stone. If I could go back to 2015 and take my brain out my head right now and put it in my 2015 body, my weight would come down to my current weight. I would be 14 and a half stone, but in my head I would be 12 stone. So that body would start to decrease in size because I would be living like a 12 stone version of myself. So my body would become a 12 stone version of myself. Equally, if I could go back to 2015, take my brain out of that body and put it in my head right now, I would eventually become 14 and a half stone because I would have all the same thoughts, habits, behaviours, beliefs, coping mechanisms. I'd be using food for pleasure. I'd be back to eating takeaways 3 and 4 times a week. I would increase this body in size. The same goes for anyone. You can find someone slimmer than you. If you put their brain in your head, they would bring your body down to the size that their brain is at. And it works in the opposite direction. Weight loss is not a game in the body. It's a game. Is that the right word to use? It is kind of. It's not a body game. It's not a weight game. It is a brain game. It is all done in your head. Your weight is where it is because of the way that you think, which determines the way that you act, which determines how many calories you consume, and that determines what your weight's going to be. This is why your main focal point for long-term weight loss, not short-term. This is the thing, right? Short-term weight loss keeps you focused on changing the body. Long-term weight loss keeps you focused on changing your mind. That's the difference. I'm going to write that down too when I bring this podcast episode to an end, because that's also good. Oh God, that's really good. If you want to lose weight for a little while, focus on your weight. If you want to lose weight forever, focus on your thoughts. Snacking is not an entitlement. It's not a necessity. Can you eat for pleasure? Absolutely. But you have to understand that if you are overweight right now, you're probably doing that too much. The future version of you is going to have to learn how to do it less, but also find pleasure in other places, in other things, other hobbies, other tasks, find enjoyment elsewhere. And learning to use snacking strategically, not as a daily entitlement, not as this is my breakfast, lunch and dinner, this is my mid-morning snack, this is my mid-afternoon snack, and this is my evening snack. You don't need them every single day. The more that you eat for no real reason in terms of need related, the higher your weight's going to be. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful. Until next time.